this is the Sunday night at Mike's, Sunday at Mike's. I've lost track of time this week, but it's so good to be here. I've been away this week. Obviously, the last two live streams I haven't done. So, yeah, Sundays we're doing here tonight. Always want to thank you for taking your time to spend a little bit of your time with me. Time is a very valuable thing. And for you to spend a little bit with me is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. While I wait for more people to join into the live stream here, I will ramble on about things that happened here at Upstairs to the Right studio. Check my picture here. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, honestly, I got pretty ill this week, as you know. I have a circulatory illness that just triggers for whatever reason. Michael Watson in the house. How you doing? Well, and it's weird. It always happens. Well, not always happens, but it happens on occasion when I'm on my way to do a guitar deal. And a week ago, last day, Ben, hey, how you doing? Hope you're doing fine. I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for showing up. I went and took a train ride from here to a town near Almere. It's about an hour train ride, not so bad to do a guitar. And yeah, it was just a train ride for hell for me. Somehow did the deal, you know, knock on wood with that one. Got home and I pretty much will have been out of things for the last week. Thank God that I filmed a couple of videos ahead. I was able to drop the video for the unboxing, the last unboxing of the Greco. If you haven't checked that out, take a look at that. Also, a Squire bass from '83. So I was able to upload something, but yeah, I've been out of it. So I'm going to make sure I've got a few in the pocket to make sure that at least there's something that's coming out for times where I'm just out of it for a week. But and it's funny, I did deal for the guitar, and I'll share it with you here in a moment as we wait for more people to join in. Hey, three chord Dave in the house. How you doing, Dave? Good to see you. Yeah, it's funny. I went to go do the deal, and that guitar sat in its case pretty much from that Saturday afternoon until just this last Friday. I didn't even really have the opportunity to take a look at it. I was just too out of it. But when I did take it out and take a look at it, I was extremely pleased with it. Now, just a little background on what the guitar deal that almost killed Mike was about. Hey, Frederick Rogers in the house. Hey, how you doing? Everybody's showing up. Good to see everybody. Yeah, if you recall, I was able to locate a Greco, a '77 Greco Super Sound. Wasn't in the best condition. I had to put a little bit of work into it, actually, which is interesting. I got a new fret polishing and crowning tools in the mail yesterday. But I had to do a little bit of work like that actually a lot of work on it. And you can check the video out. It's also on my channel. What I did with Greco to get it to the condition where I could trade it. And the idea was for me to take the Greco and to go to a vintage guitar show with it and see if I could trade it. I was in the market for a very early Mexico Stratocaster or Telecaster in a pinch. If they made Jaguars, I would have taken a Jaguar. But really, those two I was looking for, 2007, 2009 or so. And I came across a guy who, if you look at the Vinendal footage, also on my channel, you can check that out. A lot of self-plugs there. And I found a guy who had a Telecaster, made in Mexico Telecaster. Now, I will say this. We talked and we made an agreement that we would do a straight swap. My '77 Grow for that made in Mexico Tele. Fender. But you know, really, this is really a tale of value, of creating value. Because what I put into financially by buying it super cheap, that Greco, because it was such a mess, had good bones. Hey, Tommy Mack and welcome. Everybody's here. Thank you guys for showing up. And in doing the work myself, created value that I was able to trade it for the Fender. Now, not every dealer, this guy is a pretty big dealer. Got quite a number. He's not a small guy like me. He has quite a few. Not every dealer can always accurately date their stuff. They'll do it to a certain degree. If somebody comes in and buys it or is interested in purchasing, they'll dig a little bit deeper. So I can't really fault him. He had it listed as a 2002, which was out of the range that I wanted to go, but you know, it was in the ballpark of what I wanted to trade for. Actually, it turns out that it's actually a 2007. So this is a 2007 made in Mexico Fender Telecaster. This is classic 60s. This is the classic 60s Telecaster. Candy apple red, outer body, maple neck, rosewood fingerboard. Oddly, the neck is shot in nitro and the body is shot in poly. Go figure. And some people would say, well, you know, Mike, that's actually pretty accurate for a 60s telly. They were shooting in poly in the 60s. And I'd say, oh, contraire, mon frere. Actually, prior to 5, it was nitro. But close enough. This turned out to be a 2007 using the actually two daters to make sure that's correct. But this is the candy apple red. They had the 50s, and I think that's what the classic vibe Squires were derived from. I think they were derived from this series. But this 2007 Telecaster is in excellent condition. As you can see, not a nick or a significant ding in it. That's not a ding, that's just a finger mark. Not a significant mark, ding, anything. Clean, extremely clean for 2007. Now, I have a cutoff date generally with my guitars, as you know, of 2001. That's about as old as I'll go with anything that I'll buy. Again, I made the exception here because I know that the early made in Mexico Squires Fenders like these are starting to get a pretty good reputation around their quality. Particularly this classic series, this 50s and the 60s, are starting to get a little bit of reputation that they're pretty decent guitars. And having played it, I have to say it's a damn good Telecaster. I've had a lot of Telecasters. This is a really nice one. And its value trade there. Over here in Europe, these are actually going for around 850 to 900 euros. And that's in the second-hand market. Over in Japan, a little bit more, actually. Again, you know, made in Mexico's don't get over to Japan very much. They have a little bit more of a cachet to them as well. And that was the thought, was then to take this guitar with me to my next trip to Japan and trade it in for something vintage again, but a little nicer, plus maybe a little cash, something like that. We'll see. But I will not be taking that Japan trip. I'm going to have to change it to a Los Angeles trip. I'm going to need to go home and visit the family. And so there's no need to bring a made in Mexico telly to LA. That's bringing sand to the beach, preferably, but I'll figure out something with it. But that trade value there, the 77 Greco Super Sounds, those will go between 650 to 700 euros. A 2010 Fender Telecaster, made Mexican Telecaster, you know, and again, we're starting getting into different runs. I valued around that same price. This 2007 Classic 60s is actually a little bit more. I thought it was the Midnight Wine 2010. No, it was the 2007 Candy Apple Red. And so I took that initial, again, investment of that Greco, which I put the work into, and I turned it into a little bit more value by trading up. And that was kind of what the idea of this was about, to see how far. It's sort of Mike's Trade Tuesday. I was actually seriously thinking, see how many trades, how many guitars we could trade with this thing without actually putting any cash, and seeing if we get something nice, and not just in one country, trading it in several countries. And really, honestly, that was the plan, and that still may happen. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It doesn't need to do anything other than sit there and look beautiful, look gorgeous. I have to be honest. As you know, I'm a great lover of Telecasters. All of my recordings are usually done on a Telecaster, with the exception of the last album, a lot of Les Paul stuff. But I think that a Candy Apple Red Tele like this, especially with a nice piece of rosewood, they're not using Paul or whatever that's called, or Laurel, Indian Laurel. That's a pretty nice piece, and it's not heavy either. This is a extremely well balanced in terms of weight Telecaster. It's actually perfect weight. I like it. So that's how that worked out. And again, I didn't get a chance. I didn't all these things that I'm sharing with you in terms of dating it and figuring out what it was. It sat for almost a whole week. I even got around to doing that. So very happy about this. It was a pretty nice trade. And like I said, I was not well. But when the body is useless, the mind works, and my mind certainly was functioning. And just to amuse myself, because I wasn't going anywhere, I started tooling with that 77 Greco Black Custom. And I tried a white pickguard on it with a black trim, 3-ply trim, black trim, just to see how that looked. And it actually looked pretty cool. I don't have the gold hardware in order. And by the way, I showed you different ways that you can take rust off of old parts on a guitar. There's going to be a segment coming up here where I show you how to put it on. Because now I have to match if I do put a pickguard on that custom, I'm going to have to match the aging of the parts with the rest of the gold parts on that. So that's going to be fun. But I lacked those parts. And I wanted to see what it looked like with a black pickguard. And I don't have one in my spare parts. I've got two. I've got one white. I've got one H parchment, but I have no black pickguard. So I said, well, let me just get on the internet and take a look around me and see what I can find. And if you recall back a couple of months ago, when I was restoring said Greco that I did the swap for this guitar for, I had a guy in Japan on the ground looking for Strat pick guards, because I was not sure if I was going to be able to restore the original one that was on that Greco. So I had to find a suitable replacement in Japan, and there were none, if you recall. I think I got the last one of a certain color that was available, and that is the main distributor guy we went to. None anywhere. All the shops were backed up. And I talked about that with you guys. We discussed that a little bit. I found that to be alarming, slightly. But I put it up to supply chain issues for some reason or another, an abnormality that probably would not pop its head up again, but I was wrong. I was wrong. And that's where we're going to get into tonight's subject, shortages in the guitar market coming. Again, when the body is sick, the mind works. And when I was well enough to start looking on the internet and trying to find a black pickguard that I can have delivered here, I went to the usual suspects. And even one that you would say, oh no, Mark, say you didn't. But I did, because I could not find a black pickguard in stock. They had them listed. We're talking about BAX, BAX, which is the big, kind of like the Guitar Center here in the Netherlands, and a few others. And none of them had them in stock. It was like deja vu all over again, with me trying to find the Strat pickguard in Japan. On the BAX website, actually, it said that you could order it, but there's a 13-week delivery time on it. Okay, that's actually after Christmas. That's not, I can't even give it to myself as a Christmas present if I wanted to. So, you know, normally not a big deal, but here in Europe, one of the main brands, which is Boston, they are most of you guys. I don't know if you're familiar with most of these. Like, for example, I think, let me check. Yes. So this guitar stand is a Boston guitar stand. Boston is one of the big parts, you know, go-tos here in Europe. That you can get stands, or you get pick guards, knobs, you know, replace parts, things of that nature. And even in their case, where you were looking for a black Les Paul pickguard for custom, you're going to be paying 59 euros for that, by the way. Keep that number in mind, 59 euros. And it was a 13-week wait time frame on that. Again, you can't even hit it. It's not even a stocking stuffer at that point. And meanwhile, my agent in Japan found it in Japan for 1,300 yen free shipping. 1,300 yen in euros is about 8 euros and 8 euros 32. You know, under 10 euros. With no delays. The complete opposite of what shortages that were happening a few months ago in Japan have obviously been filled in, and that stuff is available again, but now I'm seeing those shortages of these items here in my neck of the woods. And I'm sure that that extends out to a lot of different people's areas. And so tonight's subject, shortages coming up in the guitar market. Now, you know, any one of us could reasonably say that we have a feeling, if you have the feelings to feel, that something is not quite right in the world right now, and things are very unstable in so many aspects, politically, economically, things of that nature. And this has ramifications on all of us. Again, I love this metaphor. I will use it forever. YouTube is a high school. Some of us act like high schoolers, even though it's supposed to be adults. But each one of these YouTube channels in their genre that they particularly focus on, if it's movie reviews or toy reviews or if it's gear reviews, has its own table. Supply chain ramifications the supply chain shortages have ramifications almost all of the tables in this scenario that I'm describing. So tonight, I want to talk about the ramifications for our community, our table, and what we can do to stay ahead of the curve. I don't like to throw out just a problem that I'm seeing. I like to also come up with solutions as well. I'm going to share some strategies to protect your builds and investments as we navigate through uncertain times. So, you know, here's like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a bridge. Here's a bunch of different parts. Again, just got myself a new fret polisher, crowning tools. I'm always and inexpensive. Where I find deals, I'll buy them. Uh, when I find deals on parts and things that I need in order to start doing the work myself, if the world is tomorrow and I have to do the work myself, I would like to have at least the parts to be able to do it. You can always go on YouTube to learn how to do it, but if you don't have the right tools, you can't finish the job. So I've always been preaching on this channel about getting parts, whatever your hobby is. Get spares. I have spare tubes. I've got one tube amp, and I've got enough tubes for several. Spare picks, spare this, strings. Always collecting strings, things of that nature. And the reason behind this, of course, is just it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it kind of philosophy. So let's explore that. Let's talk about the global supply chain. Over the past few years, we've seen disruptions across the board, whether it's due to raw material shortages, increased shipping costs, or even geopolitical issues. Certainly. There was a dock shortage happening on the East Coast of the United States, and like every bit of toilet paper disappeared off the shelves. It was averted within 48 hours or so, but people started getting that stuff. I don't want to be the guy who's rushed down to get the TP. I'd rather be the guy who's already got it at home, and I'm sitting at home, not worried about it. And that's kind of where we'll be going tonight with this. James, how you doing, James? No, you the man. How you doing? Welcome. You would think that many manufacturers are struggling to maintain inventory, and you'd be right. It is affecting everything from high-end hardware to basic plastic parts. Now, let's keep that in mind. Basic plastic parts. Now, I said I went looking for this pick guard at a place that I swore I wouldn't shop at, and you would think that this would be the place to have it, and that's Temu. I said, well, maybe who's got one, whatever. I just want a black pick guard just so I can see how it looks. They didn't have any. They were out. Now, that's a problem. And that'll tell you about cater that there is something deeper. Now, you would think that simple plastic parts like pick guards wouldn't be a big deal, but here's what's happening. Many of the factories that supply these parts are also producing other, more essential components for different industries. And when these companies prioritize bigger clients or items, music accessories will get sidelined. And it's just a fact of there's even with a company in Indonesia port factory, they're not they're going to be a big buyer, but they're not going to be one of the big plastic buyers for their pick guards, for example. And when those things become scarce, then it's going to be a bidding war as to to achieve them. And because guitars are produced at a fixed point before they even do one or after the mock-up, they figure out what every component is going to cost, where they're going to have to get it in from, and that is the cost of that's baked in. And when you start getting into cost of pick guards going up, that causes problems. When these companies prioritize bigger clients or items, music accessories can get sidelined, and when demand for other goods spikes, it leads to scarcity and unexpected areas. Now, I mentioned earlier that Boston here in Europe had a 13-week wait for a basic pick guard. While in Japan, my agent was able to get it relatively quickly. This discrepancy is partly due to local stock levels, but it's also about distribution priorities. You know, it took me a while to kind of figure that out, and I may not be right, but the theory I'm going with tonight is the priorities there. Retailers like Bax, however you pronounce it, they may be facing longer lead times from supplier companies compared to Japan, which has a more robust local market for guitar parts. There are, you know, guys who are like me buying these vintage guitars as well, and they're restoring them and selling them. Certainly, plenty of them. There are just guitar nerds who are fixing up their guitars, and there's actually guitar players who are actually trying to keep their guitar in one piece. So yeah, it's a much more circulating market in terms of those parts. So there's that. Now, of course, as I mentioned, this is not just limited to pick guards either. We've seen similar shortages for other small parts, tuners, pickup rings, and even some electronics we've experienced shortages. Um, Now, I'm interested at this point, of course, to hear from you guys. Have any of you out there experienced any of this? Have you started to see any shortages of things if you're into, rebuilding things or, modding things? I'm sure most of you are. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. I'd like to hear if you're running into these things. But like I said, I ran into this in Japan a few months ago, and now I'm running into it here in Europe. And like that detective said, I'm a detective. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Like Jim Gordon said to what was that character, Robin Masters or whatever he played, Robin basically, that you're a detective now. You're not allowed to believe in coincidences, and I don't. I think that those are two strong indicators of something deeper in the market. Now, scarcity, by the way, always leads to increased prices. Again, you know, uh, I can't get it here in Europe, in my local area, at least. Even a couple of local countries, without paying 59 euros. Whereas in Japan, I can get the exact same thing for less than 10 euros. Why is this? It's because the scarcity has increased the price on all the chains that part goes through when it hits the shores here. We're already seeing inflated prices on aftermarket parts, especially for vintage or niche brands. This can turn a simple upgrade or repair into a costly project. And there is the crux of tonight's discussion, is the fact that the reasons you want to get the parts, even if you don't want to put it on yourself, it's better to have the spare parts or things of that nature laying around. Because when you go to your luthier, the cost of that final bill is going to be a lot less if you walk in with the parts, as opposed to having a luthier having to source them. Because he's going to have a markup on them too, of course, naturally. Or again, like I said, having yourself and learning how to do it yourself, even better. So, one of the things that I foresee coming up here as a result of these supply chain issues that we are experiencing, but we will continue to see increase, is the cost of repairs and parts going up for our table. Again, this affects all the other tables, but just and again, sticking with the metaphor, let's stick with the Guitar Geek table. And if you have the mindset, like I do, to say, okay, well, I can't get it in Europe, let me reach. Hey, welcome, Anthony. How you doing? Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you so much for showing up. If you have the mindset, say, okay, well, let me reach over to Asia and look. Okay, if that's not working, let me reach over to the States and look. where is my best option? Where's my cheapest option? And that is the kind of thinking that we've gotten to at this point. Globalization has its, its kicks in the ass, and that's one of them. Is that now you got to start looking and spreading your net a little bit further. If you can do that, then buy it up while you can when you can get it cheap. I'm getting several. I told my guy this story in Japan, in Amazon. I said, hell, it's cheaper for me to buy 3 of them and ship it from Japan than to buy one here and for 13 weeks. So, I said, let's buy a few of them. So if we got them, we don't need them. If we had to do that kind of replacements or something like that, we're not hunting around trying to find it, because there may be shortages again in Japan, and as a result of that, the price might go up on those as well. That's how that works. For those of us who restore customized guitars, this could mean delays and compromises. Imagine finding a beautiful vintage guitar in need of a few replacements. I don't have to imagine, by the way. This is me speaking to you guys, putting you in my shoes. Imagine finding a beautiful vintage guitar in need of a few replacements, only to discover that the exact parts are either unavailable or prohibitively expensive. And that's what I discovered, again, while I was screwing around. Hey, let's, just that one thought. Hey, let's replace the black part that's missing on that 76 custom. That opened up this whole can of worms. And so I'm just making some points here, guys. The way inflation works, and we are in how do you say it? An inflationary environment. Tongue's not working tonight. For sure. And, you better buy it now because it's going to be cheaper next year. It's going to be more expensive next year. It's never been more true. If you can find out. Collectors should also pay attention. Scarcity can drive up the value of certain models. This is a little bit of an aside. Especially ones known for unique hardware or design features that are hard to replicate. A little bit of a tip from me to you there as well. Guitars, should you invest in them? No, no, they're not the best investment. However, they do have a certain value to them. If it's a guitar of quality. And I can see how a lot of these Japanese guitars from the 70s, now you can get them they've gone up. They have gone up. But you can still look them around for a reasonable price if you know where to look. That day is that door, like Indiana Jones, and you're trying to slide right under, is drawing to a quick close. I'll give you a little bit of a preview here, since it is appropriate. It's not too much of a sidetrack of my purchase. I think that's what it was. I think that before I got ill that week. After I did that Wednesday live stream, I was hitting it pretty hard. In terms of my work, purchasing, the guitar hunt, the guitar safari, for that nature. I really pushed it hard, but boy, I found some great guitars. I have a mint collection Greco coming. If you know anything about the Grecos as they progress, you went from the 70s Grecos, the Super Reels, to the Mint collection Grecos, with a beautiful top, guys, coming. Just a gorgeous top. That I got what I consider to be a reasonable price. Now, then it gets in my hand, it's going to go up to what the market value outside of Japan demands for it, and it's pretty high. But still in all, I think for what you're getting, and you'll see it, of course, when I unbox it, I think what you're getting with that, it certainly beats the pants night 10 times out of 10. I was going to say 9 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10 of any of the current Epiphones. But the day of those guitars being had for cheaply is quickly closing. So collectors should really also keep in mind that luthiers and small builders are feeling the squeeze too. Collectors and modders and players. If this extends out to luthiers, I always am a pro luthier guy. Support your local luthier, I always say. I can't get an appointment with mine. He's so busy these days. If I take a guitar to the firm, it'll be a good 2 weeks before I see it. There was a time there where I could get a turnaround about 3 or 4 days. But I'm happy for him. That's good. But he's feeling the squeeze too. I actually reached out to him for the gold hardware. I couldn't find that either, by the way. And he had none. So there's that. They're feeling the squeeze too. And he's a luthier, so if he doesn't have gold brackets, he has a huge, you guys have seen his place. There's not a part that he doesn't have, but if he's low on those, that's a scarcity thing. Scarcity can drive up things with small builders and luthiers. If you can't get the parts, like I said, you can't finish your builds. And this can damage your reputation, delay commissions, and ultimately hurt their businesses. So it extends out, it's to all aspects of our community. So what are my solutions to this? Well, this is all nice, Mike. All doom and gloom as usual. Mr. Sunshine as usual. I need Matty Two Hats to come in and to lighten things up. But I think that honestly, guys, there are solutions, but they are all down to you doing a few things. The first thing is stock up now. If you know you're going to need specific parts in the next 6 months, order them now. Think of it like investing in spare strings or tubes or whatever. You don't want to wait until the last minute. Or if you have one guitar, if this was the only guitar that I had, what I would do is I would I would see if I could find a spare pickguard. I may never use it, but I would have it around. I would certainly try to locate spare pickups for this. I might not use them, but I'll have them around in case one of them goes bad. Funny things like switch tips like this, that hits a floor or gets knocked and gets cracked, and you say, "Oh, no big deal. Just reach out and try to get that." Well, guess what? Maybe not. Might not be able to find it. I would certainly, and I know this sounds, I have run into tuner shortages. Tuners, good. I've got, maybe now I have 3 or 4 sets of these inline Fender type tuners now just sitting in my parts bag that I've gathered when I saw them or saw a set. I bought it. I bought them from everywhere. The quality of them goes up and down the value. In terms of the value of them, but just things like that. Start thinking like that. That's not even getting inside your electronics, spare caps, spare pots, things of that nature. If you just had one guitar and you had all the spare parts you need in order to replace the things that get worn or that you think have a potential of getting broken, then you're all good. And even if you can't do the wiring, like I said yourself, you can always take it down with you and say, "Hey, here I've got this harness. Or you take it down. There's something going wrong with the sound here," and he says, "Well, you're going to need to do this." Hey, I've got that. And it makes that bill come down a little bit. And plus, he may not have it. He may say, "Hey, that's great, because I don't." Good on you. I've had that conversation with Fern. Believe me. I highly recommend you looking for like alternative sources. As I was mentioning, I don't look just at major retailers, like in my case, Box or Tomon or whatever. Check smaller shops, eBay, Reverb, or even international suppliers. As I found out, sometimes a part that's scarce in Europe is maybe readily available in Asia, and vice versa, and vice versa. Um, One thing that is pretty cool, I always have a big major backup. If I can't find the part at all, Fern has a 3D cutter. He can fabricate uh, just about any pick guard just as long as he has the design. It gets down to having the pick guard plastic material. You gotta have the material. So, I could always, potentially buy blanks and have him or learn to cut it myself. That. And the blanks, of course, would be far cheaper than a pre-cut pick art. So something to think about. Just thinking outside the box is basically what that's about. Always build relationships with your local luthiers, so that if you can't find a part, I could WhatsApp Fern. Hey, I'm looking for the gold parts for this custom. Do you have this? Take a picture of it. Within a few minutes, he'll be like, no, or I'll take a look later. That's a great relationship to have. That's a great thing. I can go down, I can buy it off of him, no problem. Um, and the last thing I'm going to say is stay on top of the news. Dewey, how you doing, man? Welcome to the party. Wrapping it up here. Just giving some tips on things that I highly recommend you seriously consider doing. Here's about your guitar. Um, in terms of shortages if and when they occur. Stay on top of the news, guys. Parts availability can change quickly depending upon global events. The more agile you are, the better you will be at making quick decisions. Which that means you can get yourself in order on a deal, or you can hold off on a purchase that okay, that might not be the road to go down. Always stay on top of the news. You know, again, we live in perilous times. There's the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. You never understand that, interesting times is the curse part of that until you really until you really live through it. And we all have, we all have now. But they're going to get more interesting. Um, String trees. That's the other thing. I'm looking over at this guitar. I'm thinking of all the things that if I were to keep this, I'd want to get the string trees as well. I know that sounds like a small thing, but you can get a pack of 10 of these for less than $10. You got them around. Of course, with the corresponding screw, that teeny tiny little screw. But stuff like that, you want to have those around. Stuff like that could come up real short, real quick, and you'd be surprised. Then Allmark. No matter what the parts, one thing you can count on is them going up in price. Unfortunately, nothing is coming down again. Again, yeah, try to get the 25-cent bottle of Coke that I used to get when I was a kid back in the 70s out of the machine. In a bottle, 25 cents. Not happening. Once that, try in some places in the world. Try finding it in a bottle, glass bottle. But I digress. Yeah, another part of getting this stuff now again is because it's not going to get cheaper. It's not going to get cheaper. And if you can find a deal, what I find deals on stuff like, for example, this is a pretty your eBay special, but it's a good fret polisher, and it's perfect for what I need to do. Some of these vintage guitars, when I get them in, they need a basic polishing and crowning, and I got a good crowning tool. And these two came very cheaply. And see stuff like that on eBay or wherever, and you just buy it. Now I've got it. Now I can do. You guys saw the work that I did, but I was using my kind of trick things to do the polish, which would work. But this is much better, and it's a good thing to have. Been on market, except maybe used guitars. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, even that way it depends upon which one. I can't even lull that one. That's too deep. 25-cent Coke, low. I was just at a hotel in the vending machine. They wanted $3.75. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm not kidding. 25-cent Coke vending machines. They have them in Japan. When I got to Japan in '95, one of the most shocking and pleasing things was that I could buy a bottle of Coke. Now it was a yen, a coin, or about that time I guess would have made it, like 80 cents or something like that. But you could buy the bottle of Cokes just like I bought when I was a kid. And I found a beverage wholesaler, and they sold those by the crates. So I would get in my car once a week or so. I would go down, buy a 24 crate of these bottled Cokes that was really for restaurants, but I would take it home, sit in my kitchen, nail through those Cokes through the week, put the bottles back in, take it, and do the whole thing. So that was a pleasure. But yeah, dig that. 25-cent Coke. Yep. Yeah, you gotta love it. It was pretty sweet when I was living in Japan, but I was doing it up until I left for actually. But inflation on these things, buy them while you can and while they're available. You know, really think about what you need and never throw any parts away. This is the tailpiece. This is a tailpiece from a Japanese Tokai. It's stamped there, made in Japan, and LPF. So this is a Tokai tailpiece and bridge. And it's just stuff like that that I replaced with something else. But I'm holding on to that because there will come a time. Steven, hey, how you doing, man? Welcome. There will come a time when a Tokai or it's a Fit Greco as well will roll through, and I'm going to replace a tailpiece, and I've got it, and I've got a new bridge as well. I've got enough parts to do stuff like that. Never throw, and when you do a guitar deal, I used to give the parts that I did the replacement parts along the guitar when I sold it. I don't do that anymore. I keep the replacement parts. I give them the option to buy them from me, but I don't give them away anymore. It's got to that point. I charge for the case now. These vintage cases, I used to give it with the guitar. Now I'm like, hey, yeah, I bought it with the vintage case, but if you want the case, and that's because of the inflation involved in these things, unfortunately. So, and the scarcity of it as well. So, stock up on your parts, Steven says. Yeah, very true. Very true. And hold on to them very dearly and treat them as such. And you'll be all right, And, I have really no real guitar at this point of my own, but I have enough parts to build one. I mean, I have enough parts to build a pretty nice Strat right now if I wanted to, in whatever configuration I wanted it to be. It's like that. It's like that. You should be able to have enough parts around your house that you could put together a Strat or a Tele. You should have the body, should have like a body, a spare body. You should have a couple of spare configurations. You should have some necks. You should have stuff around, you know, because it's not getting any cheaper. It's just not, you know, and it's better, again, like I said, to have and need it, not need it and have it, you know, it's one of those things. Guitar Fetish has good parts for cheap. Tommy Mac, that says Steven. Tommy Mac says, putting together a parts caster can almost match the cost of a nice used Fender if you're buying new parts to do similar. Yeah, thank you. Good point there, Tommy. Thank you. Excellent point, as always. Yeah, and when you do source the parts to get, you know, when you are buying parts, look, again, like I said, I can't emphasize, the other aspect of that is looking for the deals when they come up. Don't go out there rushing and buying brand new Fender or gift. You may not need to do that. You may be able to find a replacement part company. A couple were mentioned here that you can, in the chat, that you can go to, use as your go-to cheaply. Get them in, and once you got them, that's it. You've locked in the value. You've locked in the value. You guys should look into Ninja Tone. They do locking tuners for around $60-ish. There you go. Tips, man. We got tips tonight. Keep it coming, guys. Keep it coming. This is good stuff. This is what I'm talking about. Go to these places, because I am. I'm going to take a look at that. Guitar Fetish. Ninja Tone. Yeah. Take a look at those places. And other places, you know. Source around. Buy them cheaply. I showed you in that Vinodol content that I shot, my parts guy. I see him with it. I woefully feel bad. I resisted buying parts from him because I called myself resisting gas and being good, but I actually honestly regret it because I was going to buy a couple of brackets from him, and I said I didn't feel like stopping. I want to sort through them, and you know, but I should have freaking done it. I should have freaking done it. And that's what I'm talking about. Actually, it's called Tone Ninja. My bad. No problem. Texas Freedom Lover, 920D. Yeah, you know, seriously. Parts, guys. I don't want to sit here and you know, and be a doom and gloomer, you know. But you should really, again. Hey, sir, how you doing, Texas Freedom? Welcome. I'm so glad you made it to this evening to the live stream. Thank you so much, guys. You know, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say it a few times, and if I'm wrong and everything is awesome, then at the very least, we know because of inflation, it's not going to be cheaper next year. So, did yourself a favor, even in that small way. But if it gets to the worst aspect of things and they're just not there, then you're not in need. Because with not just, you know, we're talking about the parts, but that extends to a whole lot of stuff, guys. A whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of things. Steven, have you seen the new Harley Benton Strat modern bike? Yes, I have. You know, guys, those Harley Bentons... You know, I'm curious about the weight of it, as I am with every Harley Benton. But boy, they're stepping up. They're stepping up in a lot of ways. And this is a good thing, you know. They leapfrogged over several companies that were trying to get in that position. Of course, because of Tomon behind that. But cats are gigging those guitars now. It's got that kind. It's at that level where there are pro musicians using Harley Bentons. I being one of them, I use a Harley Benton bass. As you guys see, Oxfender basses, Squire basses, vintage basses all day long. Well, why is it Mike doesn't hold on to one of those and ditch the Harley Benton? I wonder why. I wonder why. Is it something he knows that we didn't? Yeah, they're stepping up, and I'm impressed. Always have been. Not all this stuff, but a majority of it's pretty cool. But again, stock up. Stock up on stuff. You know, it's crazy. You know, It's getting to the point where it's overflowing here. The stuff that I have, it's just like I said. I have plenty of the chrome brackets, pickguard brackets, but I have none in gold. You know, which I, even though I don't get any, this is my first custom I've ever had, but there are some standards that have cards. I should have that, but I don't. I caught myself lacking. And by the way, it's not just the bracket, but you need the gold screws as well. One here and one here, and the one here, you're also going to need the corresponding washer. So, again, you know, you would think that those things are relatively easy to come across. They are not. They're not as easy, and it could be depending upon where you're at. That could change, and that's the point of what I was talking about. What was happening in Japan a few months ago with pickguard shortages, that's turned around, but now I'm having shortages here, and the price is outrageous. You know, the reason I was in Japan in the first place is because I didn't want to pay the price here. If they didn't have it in Japan, then you know, I'm kind of screwed. I'd rather have it in my hand. So now I've got to source gold brackets like these. I need a gold bracket. You know, I need a gold bracket. Mike, would you ever do a video on cheap DI boxes versus expensive DI box? I didn't I? Did I not? Have I not? Yes, many moons ago in Singapore, I believe I did a video on that. Yeah, because I had what was that DI box? I had two. Anyway, I'll take a look at it. I know I did, but maybe that's something that's worth revisiting. Um, and guys, just my advice, you don't have to listen to me. I'm good. See how that works? When you're actually good, you can say, I'm good. I'm good. With the exception of freaking, or maybe not, because I am lacking freaking gold parts. But I'm almost good. But then again, like I said, it's always something else. But I'm not putting the repairs in. I'm trying to buy the best quality guitars that I can because I don't want to put the money into repairing them because it's an extra burden on my business to have to buy that spare part because the cost of it's not as cheap as it used to be either. That's where my consideration comes in. When I buy these guitars from Japan, when I'm doing my guitar safari every month, I'm looking for the best examples of a particular model. So this collection guitar that's coming in, is it 89, 90, something like that? Isn't really good. It doesn't, from what I can see, of course, when I get it, I'll know for sure, but from what I can see for now, I don't have to put any parts expenditure into it. I don't want to do that either because of the inflation of this. This trade for this Fender, this is a 2007, but before I even said, one thing I did, as sick as I was, and we did a deal at a train station parking lot. I was supposed to go to his business and take a look around at his stuff, but I was just too ill. I said, could you just bring the to the station? Train pulled up, I got off, I went to the parking lot, did the swap in the trunk of a car. I haven't done that in so long. If I wasn't so sick, I actually took a pleasure in it, but we did a deal in a parking lot and out of the trunk of a car, but I looked at it to make sure it was clean. I double checked that and it's clean. It's clean. All the guitars I like to deal with are clean because again, like I said, I don't want to have to source a friggin' switch knob because that's a pain in the ass. It really is. And this container in here have all kinds of switch knobs as well. So that's it, guys. Just a little food for thought. Just something that I want you to seriously consider, please. It would behoove you to look into that, doing just that. It really would. It would not harm you. Because guaranteed at the very least, like I said, it's going to be more expensive next year without question. So why not get it now? Texas Freedom Lover. Assuming that one is happy with the pickups in their telly, my favorite telly upgrade is the four-way switch. Yeah, there you go. You know, you got your standard three-way switch on this sucker. And if you want to do that mod, then you've got to find the four-way switch plate, you know, and all that. And so even if it was a mod that you said, yeah, I'd like to do that, buy the parts for it. So that if you ever do want to do it, you've got it. That's another thing. Like I said, you know, look at your guitar, say to yourself, I'm thinking about maybe doing this in the future. Well, you know, I might not do it now, but I've got it in a drawer somewhere in the house. Or you know what? That could break. Let me buy a spare one of those now while it's available. Let me stock up on strings. Let me, you know, because the cost of strings is going up. Cost of steel, the cost of the materials to produce this is going up. And if you haven't seen it yet, there are counterfeit slinkies out there. Packaging looks almost like this. I think KDH covered this a couple years back, but it is in full swing now. Counterfeit strings. So even with that, you gotta worry, you know. But the cost of them, the real deal, is going up. I saw this, I saved €3 buying this packet of Vinidol. Not a huge saving from the shop, but still every little penny counts. It's a 3-pack of 9s. So, you know, when I see deals like that, I pick it up. Don't need it right now, but there will come a day when I will. So, again, guys, that is it for tonight. I think I've beaten that horse to death. I think you got my point. I think you got the gist of what I'm trying to say there. Good night to you all. I am so glad I made it through a whole hour. Good night to you, Ben. Thank you for showing up. I'm so glad that I made through tonight. I'm so glad that I have my health back. I lost 5 kilos. Before I'm laughing, it's not really funny. And you can see how thin I've gotten. I swear I lost like 10 years, you know, off of it. But I'm glad to crawl my way out of that hole and to be here tonight again with you guys. I want to say this, that when I put up the post and said that I was sick, so many of you wrote in and said get better. And reading those posts where on my channel where I saw everybody who wrote in and said get better, Mike, you guys did make me feel better. I was blown away. I was like, wow, you know, everybody's checking in and saying get better. And so thank you guys. You know, I want to finish out tonight by, Texas Freedom Lover. I'm a fan of the Seymour Duncan 5 telly set, 5 2-tellies set of pickups. You know those. Hey man, don't make it your last visit to the channel, Texas Freedom. I want you to stick around. Why don't you join? You see what kind of guys out here and these conversations we have. Just join in with us. We would love to have you join the community. Solidly love that. Love to have you here. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you for well wishes. It really, really, that day I was feeling so bad, and again, it went worse from there. But to know that you guys were thinking about me really is the reason why I do this. It really is the reason I do this, for the community and for support of the community. It's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. So thank you guys so much for that. I got things to film. I just have to get my health. I'm 95%, but I've got to review that. I want to review that Black Custom. I want to talk about this 2007 Telecaster next to me. I think there's something that it's been covered before, but there's something on it that I think is I want to say. So content will be coming up. Live stream will be coming up this Wednesday, God willing. So stuff coming up, guys. Thank you so much for showing up for this stuff. And we will see you coming up here very shortly. You guys have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.